Hi, my name is Chris Coolmer, and welcome to the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. In this podcast, I explore the unique world of music education in the international school context. You will hear amazing stories from music teachers working at international schools all around the world. Learn tips and tricks from a global community of leading music ed experts, and be inspired to develop your capacity to be truly international in your approach to music education. Hello and welcome, music teachers in international schools family. Thank you to everyone who's been tuning in to the episode so far. It's nice to have such an active and encouraging community. And if you haven't heard any of the previous episodes, do jump on the website at mtiis.com, where you can access the episodes on your platform of choice. I kind of think of the podcast as a potential professional development tool for music teachers working in international schools, because it's kind of a nice way that you can keep in touch with what's going on in our big global world of music teachers and maybe learn from other music educators. So if you've got a spare hour or even less, maybe use those podcasts as a way of tuning in and learning something new. Now, today I'm excited to be speaking with Paulette Wilkinson. Paulette and I go back quite a bit, and I had the pleasure of seeing her in action during her time working at the British School of Phuket. In her time in Phuket, Paulette built a class-based concert band program from scratch. She also hosted multiple international collaborative music festivals, band concerts, choirs, and orchestra sort of things. So this is what we're going to explore today. If you're interested in developing an instrumental program in your school, then this is a conversation I don't think you'll want to miss. So, welcome, Paulette. Thanks for joining me.
Hello.
And how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, all good.
Good. And where are you speaking with me from today?
I'm speaking to you from far west Wales, very wet and windy Pembrokeshire.
Nice. Now, did I get it right before? Was it the British School of Phuket, or did I drop the international?
British International
Okay.
School. This.
Yeah, wanted to make that clear. As I said it, I was like, I'm sure the international was in there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's start with that. So Paulette, you worked at the British International School of Phuket for quite a while. How long was that?
7 years. Yeah.
Nice. And let's go back then to your journey to international school teaching. What led you to international school music teaching in the beginning?
Well, I think it was a bit of a midlife crisis. So we lived in Devon, again, a very rural area of the UK. And I'd been for many years director of music at an all-girls independent school, which I liked doing. I loved it. It was a brilliant school. The writing was on the wall that it wasn't going to be sustainable as a school for much longer. And I felt that I ought to try a little bit of teaching in the real world, which I hadn't really done. So I did a year teaching at the local comprehensive in Torquay. And it was definitely eye-opening, completely different experience. The subject knowledge wasn't the main criteria, it was classroom management skills. And they offered me a job a permanent job after the year, but I just couldn't see myself doing it forever. So we were just scrolling through the TES, and I saw a job in Bangkok, and my husband said, "Go for it." And I thought, really? Okay. So anyway, I applied, went for an interview in London, and the following August, we all disappeared out to Bangkok. We thought we were going for 2 years, and 12 years later, we've just come back.
Wow. So you're back in Wales now? After a 12-year stint.
Yes. So, I'm working as a music coordinator for Pembrokeshire Music Service, very exciting time for music in Wales, as the government have just ploughed an awful lot of money into providing instrumental access for primary school children. And I'm going to be rolling out the First Experiences scheme for Pembrokeshire. Super exciting.
Very exciting. We'll have to touch base in a year's time or something and see how it's progressed. Sounds really cool.
Well, hopefully it does.
All right, nice. So Bangkok and then on to Phuket.
Yeah.
Let's dig into the international school music teacher idea, because 12 years is a good innings. And I like to think about some of the challenges of international school music teaching. So what would you say was one of your biggest challenges as an international school music teacher?
It was getting up to speed with the IB diploma syllabus straight away, because as I came into Regents and I came into Phuket, there were students who were halfway through the course. And again, getting up to speed with iGCSE music, because I taught at Excel in the UK, and they were both those syllabi require a much more academic approach to music, and so your subject knowledge has got to be right on point. So that I found was a major challenge. But also then, settling into a community where you don't know who fixes instruments, you don't know where to get instruments from, who are you going to use as your peripatetic staff? That was a big issue in Phuket. I mean, there were peripatetic staff in the school, but if you needed additional, Phuket's a holiday island. It wasn't a source of culture really. So those were, you had to network quite quickly, I think.
So you went to the international school music teaching kind of scene without having done any work with the IB before?
None whatsoever.
Wow.
But the school were, I was at Regents International School in Bangkok, and they were fantastic. So straight away, because they'd known I'd done a lot of A-level teaching and things, I didn't have to go and do an initial IB category 1 or 2. I went straight in and went to Singapore and did a category 3, which was just amazing, and was working with very experienced tutors and experienced international music teachers, and so that was. It was just a fantastic grounding, and those connections that I made through that first initial course have stayed with me subsequently.
That's great. So that was an official course through the IB.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was an official IB DP category 3. Yeah.
That's cool. It's good to know, isn't it, that it's possible to find work and maybe not know the IB in and out before you arrive, and that there is potential training in the IB music curriculum.
Yeah, I think this. When I interviewed this for the school, they were very careful to know that I had sound academic background. I had a master's degree in musicology and analysis. So those things were there. It was just the nitty gritty of how to approach and program the course.
Yeah, so you have to know your stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. Okay. The other challenge that you had about finding peripatetic teachers, that's an interesting one. And Phuket, like you said, is a holiday island. Could you give us any tips on how you went about finding peripatetic teachers in the end?
No. It was just so difficult. And that was one of the reasons why we did a classroom-based music program, because then I could use the expertise of my team, and they were, really tip-top musicians in their own instruments. I could use those to the optimum, whereas I couldn't find a brass teacher. Because obviously if we needed a brass teacher, they had to be able to communicate in English, and that often wasn't the case.
Right.
So that was really hard. That's why I had to play to our internal strengths.
Okay, so you had your full-time music teachers were working on this program specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in each, when we got to Key Stage 3, there were 2 full-time teachers in every lesson. I mean, the school were, very very accommodating and really wanted to make this program work.
Well, let's set this up for our listeners. So you came to Phuket, and maybe give us some details on sort of what happened when you arrived, so that, to give you this idea of building a band program from the ground up. And how did you approach it? What was your process?
Okay, well, it was quite obvious that we needed to do something, and we needed to do something fast to encourage IG and IB uptake, and also to foster some enthusiasm and engagement with music at Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. And the headmaster was really supportive, Neil Richards, of developing the musical side of the school. He'd developed himself a very, very high performance sporting program, but if your inclination as a student wasn't that way, then there wasn't enough to really interest you. I mean, art and drama were excellent, yeah, but musically, no. We needed to do something. So we started in primary because there were already some instruments in place. So years 1 and 2 would have a 30-minute. Everybody had a 30-minute musicianship lesson where we focused on instrumental skills. And right from the word go, we've got an element of notation and a focus on rhythm. So years 1 and 2 played off instruments. 3 and 4 played the recorder. 5 and 6, we purchased a class set of violins, and they played the violin, because we did have a violin peripatetic teacher who didn't have much uptake in his one-to-one lessons. So we used him in the classroom. And then I spoke with the head, and he'd been head of the British International School in Yokohama. And he said, we used to have this wonderful big band. Why can't we have a big band? And I said, well, yeah, we can, but all of these things take time and investment. And I said, I think, one way for us to go would be down a concert band program. I'd seen, when we'd been in Bangkok, how it worked in the American schools, particularly ISB, and I'd done some research into the American band programs, and it was fascinating that multi-instruments would be learnt in a curriculum lesson. So he got a special fund from the owners of the school, which funded a classroom, a set of instruments for every child in year 7. So we had clarinets, flutes, alto saxes, tenor sax. We already had a bari sax, bizarrely, euphoniums, and baritones, and we had a tuba in school, which we didn't use initially, and we decided not to go down the line of double reeds because none of us were specialists in that area. So we started off with these guys, and then the following year we added in year 8 and year 9 instruments. So in 2 years' time, we've got a full set for the whole cohort. And that was the important thing, that the children could take their instruments home. And that was built into the program, that they did weekly homework. And to be honest, Google Classroom was really, it was really the focus. It was where the repertoire was. It's where they submitted their homework. It's where we gave them feedback. And when we got locked down for COVID on 2 or 3 occasions, we already had everything there to carry on with them playing at home, as long as they'd taken their instrument home.
That's amazing. I'm just thinking, so to clarify, you started with year 7, a full cohort set. How many instruments are we talking for one cohort?
30, about 75 to 80.
Right. So the first year, 75 to 80 instruments for that cohort. And then the second year, 2 more cohorts were added.
Yes. So yeah.
That's fantastic. What a great.
I mean, they were entry level instruments. Sure. But what we did do was that the guy we purchased them through, who was based in Phuket, we got him on board to fix the instruments.
That is such an important point to think about.
And that was very important.
Yeah. So how did you arrange that? I think people would be interested potentially in this. How did you arrange that? Did you have a maintenance cycle where every blah months they were maintained, or did that guy come in regularly to maintain?
He came in. If there was an instrument that really was not functioning, he'd come into school and fix it, or sometimes he'd take them back to his workshop. But then at the end of every academic year, he took them all away for a deep clean.
Nice. And was that factored in budget-wise? Like when you set out this program, you thought we need to keep this aside for maintenance?
No, I didn't factor it in on the year 1. It was only getting to the end of year 1, and I thought, what am I going to do with all these instruments?
Yeah.
And then we factored it in thereafter.
So you've got. Let's go back to your year 1. So you've got your year 7 class. They've all got their instruments. How did you come up with the resources to cater to that whole cohort? What maybe you could tell us some of the resources you used, or some of the approaches you used to get these students all playing.
Well, a lot of it to begin with was sound before sight, and then we, because I looked so much into this American school approach, we used essential elements. So they can all play together from that book quite happily. It did make it difficult for flautists, but 2 of my colleagues at that stage were their principal instrument was the flute. So that was, that really, really helped. So we used that. Then I've got friends who taught in the wider opportunity scheme, which was used throughout the UK. Well, it was just settling down, I think, when we got to Phuket, and there was quite a bit of repertoire that they suggested for early playing together, and a lot of it was, I think it's called lemon squeezy and orange squeezy. You play with a backing track, and they just loved doing that.
That's
that it really inspired them, and they had like crazy titles, and they were just such good fun. So that was, it was quite easy to get them enthused, and then we fitted in, we factored in regular performances. So at the end of term 1, the year 7s, they could manage a version of Jingle Bells. So they performed at the primary concert. And then at the end of term 2, they played at International Day. So we'd find something with a vaguely international theme, Yeah. And then year on, they progressed to something more tricky at those events. It might, we might recycle the same piece for as you got into year 8, you always played this, but still, they enjoyed doing that. And then at the end of term 3, there'd be some other event they could play. Often they were filmed playing outside, and it was used as part of a PR event. It was just good to always be giving them a performing opportunity, so they could see the purpose of what they were doing.
I like this idea, and having worked with lots of beginner groups in the past and still now, that idea of having scheduled performances, motivation, focus, means something to them, when they're bashing through all these tunes that are maybe a little bit simple. It doesn't matter because they know they're going to perform it and they're going to have an audience that are going to enjoy it, right?
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
I'm interested a little bit more in how you worked with your school admin and principal to ensure that this program was successful. Like, do you have any tips or tricks for us of how you approach that?
Well, they were desperate for it to be a success.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, there is a big financial input. They could see that I was enthusiastic, energetic. I was going to make it work. So maybe they didn't have that worry, and they knew that I'd got a really good supportive team. So I didn't really feel that I had to keep going to them or they had to keep coming to me and questioning things or asking things. The proof was in the performing. So they'd wanted something right from the go off that could be seen to show that the students were getting a more holistic education. So to be honest, it was really quite easy.
Sounds like you had such a supportive principal. That's amazing. You recognized it and tapped into that. Yeah.
Well, we needed something, and this year the iGCSE cohort were totally made up of students who'd started in the band program. So they were all playing their band instruments for their iGCSE performances.
Wow. I wanted to ask that. What was tell us a bit more about the effect. Like,
it wasn't as great as I'd hoped.
Okay.
But just as we were getting into the stage that they were, GCSE proficient, their choices for iGCSE were dramatically reduced. So it was very hard for them to actually, as in Southeast Asia, it's much more important to be doing business studies and the like. So the students that did music really did have to find their patch. But nevertheless, we were really pleased that they did keep it up and do well, because it was a very practical Key Stage 3. We didn't really do composition. Listening skills were inbuilt, but we hadn't done composition. So they did have a few hurdles to hit once they hit iGCSE, but we just felt that because they had the developed musicianship skills, they would be able to access the composition a lot easier.
Yeah, right. When we first met, I'm pretty sure it was at one of these big festivals that I mentioned in the introduction, where we had, or it might have been a conference, but either way, I remember coming to BISP and bringing students along and having a blast. The festival had children from all over the place, and I've heard that this kind of thing is starting to be spoken about again for the year ahead, with schools sort of coming through
good.
COVID and things, that it's going to be possible. Let's hope. But yeah, you hosted a bunch of these festivals, right? Do you remember how many you hosted in total?
I think it was 4 in the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that like for you? And what was your approach to putting on these festivals?
Well, again, there was a lot of support within the school, and there was also an infrastructure for organising big events, because the school used to host soccer sevens, and students came to play football from all over Asia and even further afield. So there was already a team there that could help, events planning team that could help with that. But the main reason that, I asked, could we host one of these, was because it was very difficult to get parents interested in sending their child to a musical event somewhere else in Asia that would cost a lot of money. The fact that it was non-competitive didn't seem to draw their interest at all. So I thought, well, if we host one at home and they see what it's all about, then hopefully, in years to come, the students would travel. We got as far as Bangkok, but I think once we started hosting, parents actually liked the hosting in Bisp, but they were particularly supportive of those events.
And logistically, you have all these schools coming from all over Asia. How was that? Was it difficult, or did you have some systems that you kind of reused each time?
Yeah, I think we sort of developed systems to use. We'd like Google Forms that required everything filling in. We worked on a format for. I tried to do. On some festivals, on one night, we went to Siam Niramit, which was like a Thai cultural show. But then also, I remember we brought in Siam Saxophone Quartet. They came and did like a Saturday evening concert. There was a famous Russian flautist on the island. Do you remember him, Maxim Rubstov?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, he was visiting some friends whose child went to the school, and so he came along and did like a workshop and recital. So it was just grabbing everybody and anybody who could provide something different, something interesting for the students.
And for those who are listening and are not sure exactly what we're talking about in terms of the format, we're talking about Bisp hosting a big festival where children from as many as 10, 15 schools are coming to that school, and they're creating a collaborative ensemble, right?
Yeah, so everybody travel in on the Friday. Sometimes if say they were coming from Jeju, they might have to come the day before, because of flights and all the rest of it. So Friday evening would be like a getting to know you. If some schools had arrived earlier, sometimes we'd do like a playthrough in the afternoon. Food was important because Bisp is a boarding school. The catering side of things was really quite easy, and the caterers loved special events, so they pulled out all the stops, all the beautiful Thai food that and they catered for everybody, vegetarians, vegans. They were on form with that. So then on the Saturday morning, breakfast, and we do sectional rehearsals, lunch, then maybe do something different in the afternoon. I remember one year we did taiko drumming, or we might do smaller ensembles, different repertoire, flute choir. We did a saxophone ensemble as well, then go back and do another workshop, another rehearsal, dinner, then an event that didn't involve the children playing, so they had a rest, maybe a concert, maybe team games, bit of fun. Sunday afternoon, we'd be heading towards a concert, so we'd be doing dress rehearsals, topping and tailing, and then after the concert, we always had a big pizza party, and then schools would either disappear Sunday evening or most often on the Monday morning, and usually left buzzing.
For sure. I really wanted to talk about this with you because I think it's such an exciting potential for schools to be thinking about doing, and they were just such buzzy events. I just remember students leave, and I say were because of obviously COVID's put a bit of a stop to all of it, but such a great experience for the kids. And yeah, it was so cool the way you ran those events. And I'm just thinking about people who might be listening and thinking, oh, I would like to get involved with that one day. And there will be opportunities. They'll come up hopefully in certain networks, especially as you mentioned in Asia, there was quite a strong network with Fabricia. But if someone was interested in this concept of like hosting a festival or trying to get something started in their region, say we've got someone listening from South America and they wanted to get, or say even Argentina or something, and they want to get all the schools in Argentina together, could they get in touch with you and have a chat and get some info?
Oh gosh, absolutely. I think once you move out of being in a boarding school, it's harder because then you've got to get you've got to get hotels involved, and get those on board. But I mean, again, there's other ex-colleagues, aren't there, in Fabricia who've done those events where they've not had any facilities on site. There's I think there's a lot of expertise out there. We were blessed with huge boarding facilities, which that gave it a very sort of inclusive family atmosphere, because everybody was there every night. They weren't being shipped out to hotels. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to help.
Great. So in the show notes for this episode, we'll include some contact details for you, and people might want to get in touch. That's great. Well, thanks, Paulette. So much nice and interesting and relevant information around the setup of the band program, and I'm sure people might have some questions on that. So we'll see what comes in, but the festivals thing as well, as we've said, really, really nice to hear your experience with that and how you approached it. Before the chat, before the recording, we were chatting about your experience teaching overseas in international schools for 12 years. And you mentioned something that I thought would be really interesting, and that was that you had your 3 daughters kind of go through school. And those who've listened to the episode I did with Anna Gower, she was talking about her children attending international schools too. But you've had your children go through the process, finish schooling in an international school. So I thought it'd be nice to ask, what was the effect of international schooling on them?
Well, so when we flew into Bangkok, Emily was going into year 7, Hannah going into year 9, and Katie going into year 10. No, try again. Year 11. Katie was going into year 11. So it was a little bit of a worry for Katie because she already was halfway through a GCSE course, but was changing to iGCSE. Some subjects she'd done in the UK weren't offered. So she was a bit of a worry when we first landed in Bangkok. I was also very worried that there'd be a massive culture shock. But there wasn't. They just hit the ground running and didn't look back. For our middle daughter, who was really, really into dance, Bangkok was just superb. The level of dance teaching, ballet in particular, was just out of this world. So once she'd finished year 11, Hannah actually came back to the UK and went to dance school. And she, because at 16 you can do your degree in dance, which is what Hannah did. And I think because she'd, danced with international children, she'd been at school with children from all over the world, and she'd also had to travel on her own to and from the UK when she came back, to see us and what have you. She just wasn't really frightened by the size of the world. It seemed quite small to her. So after she completed her degree, she then went and did a year's dancing in India. And then she worked in Cyprus and Malta. She's now based in London, but it definitely did. I know it sounds corny, but it did open the world to her and to the others. So the eldest one completed her IB in Bangkok, and then she spent 6 months in Townsville working in as an outdoor ed assistant in a boarding school. And then she went to Columbia and did another 6 months. And then after that, she went to uni, and she's now teaching in London. And the youngest one, she came with us to Phuket. She definitely enjoyed island life to its absolute full. Mm-hmm. And she's now teaching in Abu Dhabi, teaching PE in Abu Dhabi. So I feel that it did them no harm whatsoever. In fact, everything about it was positive. And as teenagers growing up in Bangkok, it was so safe. I worry about them in London, but yet they're in their mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm. But Bangkok, they public transported themselves, overground, underground. There were never any issues. They gained quite a lot of independence there. So yeah, I don't know if we'd have done it earlier. I certainly worried about Emily becoming a bit of an expat brat in in Phuket if she'd had all her life there, because the thing is that their friends tend to be the children of very wealthy people, but ours are the children of teachers. We had great aspirations for them, but not financially able to support some of these things. Yeah.
We could probably have a nice conversation just on that topic. I think a lot of people would resonate with that kind of, I don't know, is it a contradiction of international schooling life as a teacher, where you're sort of in this middle ground almost? And there's some great studies on this, actually. If anyone's interested, drop me a line. There's some really interesting studies on teachers and their identity in international schools, which has just reminded me from what you've said. But thanks for sharing that. I think it's very poignant and useful information for people who might be considering this trajectory in their career.
Well, certainly the education they got was second to none.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Good to know. Great. Okay, Paulette. Well, I think we're going to wrap up there. Is there anything else you wanted to share about your work, about the band program, about the festivals, or something else that we didn't cover?
I don't think so, but if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If somebody's on the cusp of an international career, wondering whether to do it or not, I would say go for it. It's given us such memories. And the ability, I know COVID really knocked that on the head, but the places we travelled to, from Phuket, we managed 4 trips to Australia. We wouldn't be going to Australia from here. And, they were such wonderful memories.
Australians are all right, aren't they? They're okay.
Yes, we even stayed with one. Yeah, it was okay.
Good. So we'll, as I said, we'll put some contacts in the show notes. If anyone wanted to try and find you, reach out sort of online, is there a way to do that?
Facebook, LinkedIn,
yeah,
Twitter.
Okay, all of those. We'll make sure we have all those little bits of information. Yeah. Are you involved in some of the groups still? Some of the online, like the Facebook groups for teaching? That sort of thing?
Yes, because, never say never.
I like it. Well, thank you so much, Paulette. It's been really fun, and have a great year ahead with your new project in Wales. And again, maybe we could do another chat in 12 months' time, and we might have some new insights on a whole nother area that you're working in. So exciting. Yeah. Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Paulette. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. Listen to other episodes by visiting mtiis.com or learn more about our community on Facebook by simply searching for Music Teachers in International Schools. If you know someone who you think I should get on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at chriskoelma.com, ChrisKoelma.com. See you next time.